Good afternoon, folks. I'm your host, James, aka Jim Lettuce, and this is the official Temporary Space Podcast. On this show, we only care about two things, technology and entertainment, and how these two industries affect each other. You can download the latest episode of the podcast on our SoundCloud or check out the archive on Mixcloud and our official network channel on YouTube. Just go to TemporarySpace.net. As usual, I will go over a list of topics based on information I find on the internet, and I will touch on the industry trends that I see, and I will make predictions based on those trends. Then, after a short break, we'll have our guest. Today's guest is Keagan Oka. Stay tuned. Alright, let's get started. The first trend today it has to do with VR and Samsung. The label I put for the trend is that Samsung has the right idea about VR, and they really do. What they're doing is they're sending out these packages that have their special Samsung quote unquote VR kit, and it comes with a Samsung phone. And what that is they're packaging it. They're making it easier for you to do both. The same thing is going to happen when the PlayStation VR comes out. People are just more likely to get it because it goes with a PlayStation. It goes with a product that they already are familiar with and they already use. So I think Samsung has the right idea. I think if they want people to adopt VR, more of the audience do, more of the population, they definitely need to keep packaging their little VR units with their phone. Now, granted, it's probably a little more expensive, but that's just how it goes. And honestly, the price range is what's keeping me out of VR. Like, I would love to get an HTC Vive or an Oculus. Well, I probably wouldn't buy Oculus, and I'm going to try to get a PlayStation VR. I would love to get all this stuff, but I don't have $400 to drop on that right now. And I think the mobile VR is the key to getting, most of the population to, broad adoption when everyone's going to be doing it. I think mobile VR that's just how it's going down. Plus, smartphones are getting better and better. In 5 years or 3 to 5 years, even a few years, smartphones will be way better than they are now, and they'll just be that much better at VR. So I think this is good for VR in general. I think it's great branding for Samsung because, I don't know about you, but the only mobile VR that I've ever heard of is Google, their Google VR headset. It's just cardboard. I think it's called Google Cardboard because Google would do something like that. But I think, besides Google and Samsung, I really can't name anybody else that's doing it. So good on them. Good job, Samsung. I hope VR takes off. I want to get into it. I'm kind of worried that it's going to make me sick and all that. I don't get car sick or anything, but I'm kind of worried about it. Plus, there's something else I should mention. When VR starts to take over, when it becomes more popular, we're going to start seeing more people with depression and suicide and people staying in VR so long that they just die in their chair and stuff like that. And that's not good. It's bad. But with any new technology, there's going to be a new set of, social problems and mental health problems we're going to have to deal with. Because there was this one YouTube video I watched. I don't know what it was. I'd put a link if I could remember it. It was one of these bigger channels like The Know or something. And they were talking about VR. And this one girl, she said, there's one thing I'm worried about is that everything doesn't feel real anymore. Because we're basically hacking the human body. It's just like that scene in The Matrix. Our idea of reality is simply, electrical signals interpreted by our brain. So when we mimic that and hack it with VR, our brain is suddenly getting something very similar to reality. And especially as the technology gets better, this is going to become a real problem. And me, as a person who, I suffer from anxiety and depression, I start thinking, I don't know if VR is... I'm kind of worried that maybe I won't like it. Maybe it'll make me start questioning reality. And then you get into the whole Inception thing. Is this real? Am I in a dream? Put your tinfoil hats on. Some people still think we're in a giant simulation. I guess that could be true. I'd rather just ignorance is bliss. If that's true, whatever. I don't really want to know about it. You know, it's not like I'm going to go fight with Keanu Reeves to stop it. So I guess we're stuck in this simulation. You're in a simulation listening to my podcast right now. Congratulations. Welcome to the human race. You know, I don't really have much else on this. I think that's good. I could rant and rave about VR all the time. The whole show if I wanted to, but no, let's move on. Alright, the next trend on my list has to do with live streaming. Now, if you're watching this and you don't know what live streaming is, I question your sanity because you've somehow gotten a hold of my podcast, so you should have at least heard the term. But live streaming is just your live broadcasting of video or audio, I guess, on the internet. Now, I'm a millennial, and I see this as just, it's like the radio, the way the radio used to be, or television. Now, I know that has to do with radio waves, and broadcast television is more about broadcasting a signal over an area. But if you think about it, functionally, the internet is the same thing. When I live stream something to you, like on YouTube or something, you're like, all you have to do is have a receiver, i.e. a computer on the internet, or even a phone now, and you can tune in to the live stream. I mean, I could even live stream this show if I wanted to, but I don't. I really don't like live that much. As a filmmaker, I prefer being able to edit stuff and fix the audio later and, you know, color correction and all that jazz. So I'm really not, I mean, I've been experimenting with live. I would like to do some kind of live broadcasting, live streaming with my YouTube channel in the future. But, you know, a lot can go wrong when you're doing live, and it's getting useful to where anybody can do it now. It's still kind of shysty though. I think we need another year or two, and it will become a super reliable thing. It's reliable enough to make a living off of it, like if you're on YouTube, but I still think we have another year or two before it's completely, totally useful. I mean, using computers and the internet when it started, well, computers were already around, but like when the internet was starting, it was very tricksy and shysty, you know, and that's just how I think we're almost past that with live streaming. But the article that I'm talking about today is it's an article on PCMag.com, and they're talking about how Tumblr is starting a live stream function, and I think that's super cool. I don't really use Tumblr, but you know, the trend I have written is that everyone and their brother has a live stream function. Now, a second ago I mentioned what live streaming is, and everyone and their brother is doing it. Like if you're any kind of media company, you should, especially social media, you should be talking about live streaming if you're not already implementing it, because it's a very good way to give legitimacy to something. Watching something pre-recorded is cool, but I think people still think of live as this kind of official thing. Even if you're live streaming from some grainy webcam, it's still, there's something about live and instant that makes it cool. And I don't know about you, but every time I'm looking through my subscriptions on YouTube and one of the channels has that little red dot, they're live, I get super excited. I go, oh shoot, they're live. Oh, I gotta see it. You know, it's like the way television was, but you control it, you know? It's very similar to television. Later on, I'll talk about how YouTube is television, but we're talking about live stream here, and actually, I didn't even know Tumblr is owned by Yahoo. That's very interesting. I think if Yahoo does it right and Tumblr sticks around, then Yahoo can stay around, because right now, Yahoo is still big, but I mean, honestly, when is the last time you went to Yahoo for anything besides your mail, right? Like, I have a Google Mail as well, but I only use it for like official stuff. My personal email is a Yahoo email, and so I think this is going to help Yahoo stay relevant. I think this is a bigger trend where live streaming is going to become very normal for most people. I mean, you've already seen Facebook. They have a live stream function now, and I think it's working. I've never tried it myself. Like I said, it's a little shysty, but I think it's cool. I hope this works out for Tumblr. I mean, I'm definitely not going to join Tumblr because of this, but it's very cool. It's very interesting. And for anybody out there that wants to get into content creation, it's very easy. Live streaming, like, you have to understand, kids, that when I was little, what is this, 15, 20 years ago, the only way to do live video was you had to work at a TV station or be a news anchor, or, you had to have money and all this facilitations and these buildings and all this stuff, and you had to have permission from the government and blah, blah, blah with radio waves. But now, any jackass with a $300 laptop or a $400 smartphone can literally live broadcast video of themselves all over the internet, which is, theoretically it's worldwide. Obviously, not everyone has the internet, but it's such a wide pool of audience, and it's always constantly growing. I don't know a statistic, but I would imagine there's, something in the hundreds of thousands of people every hour that are joining the internet and discovering YouTube and what have you. So let's keep an eye on this. Live stream it's really awesome. I think it's great. Now my next trend has to do with the Warcraft movie. If you've ever heard of Warcraft, it was basically this real-time strategy game for a long time, and then they started World of Warcraft, which I bet you've definitely heard of that. People call it WoW. That was an extension of that, but it's more of an RPG kind of thing. But it's online MMO, and I was never really into it. I can't do real-time strategy. I'm not good at strategy. I'm more of a tactical thinker than a strategic one, which means I don't plan ahead very well. And I played WoW. I remember playing WoW in college. They had the beta testing, and I played that. And I'm for those of you in the audience that know about it, like, Warcraft is cool, but I'm more of a Skyrim fan, and I feel like in the video game world, that's kind of the two sides. There's the more MMO kind of RPG, and then there's Skyrim, or any Bethesda game, which is they're known for being kind of a dumbed down RPG for people that don't really play that, and I like it because I'm dumb like that, and I like when games spell things out for me. It shouldn't be too hard. I don't like a game where the point of the game should not be to figure out how to win. I think the challenge should be beating the game. So figuring out how to do it should be relatively easy, but actually, winning the game should be the challenge. So I get very frustrated. And when I played WoW, it was like, go to this field and kill 10 boar and get 10 boar teeth. And I was like, this is bullshit. I don't want to play this. I want to go into a dungeon and fight monsters and stuff. And apparently, if I had played longer, you get to do that. But it seemed too focused on the grind. But basically, this trend has to do with the Warcraft movie. They made a movie. Newsflash, they make movies for video games, and they are notoriously bad. I can't think of any video game movie that was actually good, except maybe the first Mortal Kombat, but I think it's because I was 11 when it came out. I watch it now, there's still nostalgia, but it's not the best movie. And so most video game movies are bad. They don't make a lot of money, they're bad. It's not like adapting a book. When you adapt a book, you're still going to piss off fans, but I think the transition for a story from a book to a movie is a smoother transition than a game to a movie, because games, there's so many more moving parts to a game. With a book, you sit there with the text in front of you, and it's you and your imagination, and that's it. But with a game, there's just a lot of moving parts. There's the story and the text, but it's also your experience and what you make of it. I think there's a little bit less wiggle room with the controller and how you play versus your imagination and a book. So needless to say, it's really, really hard to make a video game movie good. Now, this one called Warcraft, it's based on WoW and all that. I guess Warcraft was the original. It's a bunch of orcs and people fighting, and it's all CG. Now, I can rant and rave for an entirely separate podcast about how awesome all CG movies are, it's kind of a dividing factor. A lot of people hate CG. They say, oh, practical effects are better and blah, blah, blah. I honestly prefer CG. I think it's cool. As a producer of films, of movies and stuff, I think it's a lot cheaper to have 3 guys sit in an air-conditioned room and crank out some CG orc than it is to have a bunch of practical effects and you got to film outside, and what about the weather, and then the camera runs out of film or batteries or memory or whatever you're working with. And so I think CG is awesome, and it's getting so good where you can't tell the difference. Like they've gotten any material like wood, metal, like I can't tell the difference now. I know it's fake, but I'm sitting there going, I can't tell anymore. And in this one, they invented some new software to do hair, so the hair is looking pretty good too. And it's a big deal. The reason I'm even mentioning this movie is because it's the highest grossing video game movie ever. And I'm pretty sure, let me pull up Watch Mojo. Let's see, or Box Office Mojo, that's what I meant to say, boxofficemojo.com. Basically, it's the highest grossing video game movie of all time, and I'm about to find out if it is, how profitable it was. Now, these websites aren't 100% accurate, but it gives you a good ballpark. Okay, the budget was $160 million, and they made about $45 million in domestic, and I'm in the United States, that's what I mean by domestic. And foreign, they made, holy crap, $368 million. So they definitely made their money back. I was thinking this was kind of a flop. I mean, plus, when you get into movies in the movie business, a lot of times they consider it a flop if it only does well if it's just domestic, because a lot of distributors, they make a deal where they get all the domestic and then some other company will get the foreign income. And that's stupid. Anybody trying to produce a movie, you should get all of it. Don't split it up like that. You're not going to make as much money. But wow, that's really interesting. It did way better. Apparently nobody in America likes it. But wow, $368 million. That's like more than double their profit. Holy crap. So the trend I'm getting towards is that there's going to be a lot more video game movies made. There's going to be, I mean, they've always done that, but I think with the success of this, they're really going to start cranking these out. And as consumers, that means we're going to see a bunch of crappy ones, but it also means there's a potential to have some really great, amazing, world-changing video game movies. I think it'll work. Now, I think it's crazy that I'm doing a whole podcast about it. I've never actually watched this movie because I don't really go to the movie theater anymore, so I'm waiting for it to come out on Blu-ray. But it looks awesome. The reviews said it was all right. If you like the game, you'll like it. I'm not really into the game, so I won't get all the references. I'm going into it just watching it as like a really awesome CG movie. Plus, I like the guy who plays the lead. He's the guy from Vikings. I love that show because they all have wicked beards in it. And also the guy who plays the main orc, he's this guy named Toby Kebbell. And he's one of my favorite actors because he played this character named Johnny Quid in a Guy Ritchie movie called Rock'n'Rolla. And it's the greatest, one of the greatest movie characters of all time. So I'm biased towards this movie, but basically the trend is, I think since this movie did so well, we're going to start seeing a whole lot more video game movies. So yeah. Now this next trend it has to do with censorship. Now let's talk about censorship for a minute. I believe censorship is bad. I think it is a slippery slope. Once you start telling people that they cannot use a word, once you start saying people that they're not allowed to express an idea, it becomes a very slippery slope. The end goal, like the end game of that, is Nazi Germany. And censorship is a thing. It's always been around. But I've always noticed that it's very inconsistent. When I would listen to the hip-hop radio stations, and sometimes they would bleep out the most random things. Like they don't really bleep stuff out. They cut it out or they'll play it backwards. But like they used to, they cut out the normal stuff like references to sex or drugs or violence. Sure. But it's different. It's like sometimes they'll say, like someone will say the word goddamn, and then they'll bleep out the word God. And then I've heard it where they'll bleep out the word damn. And I'm like, well, if like, why is it either it's all bad or it's all okay? You know, that inconsistency is my main complaint with censorship, is that who decides it, you know? Some people think it's okay, some other people think it isn't, and it's highly inconsistent, you know? You'll notice how, like, movies that are, or let me use a different example. Late night talk shows, things like the Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, you'll notice that the ones that are less big of a deal, they have more restrictions. And then when you get to be bigger and more important, sure, there's more restrictions because you have a bigger audience, but they seem to be able to get away with more, you know, because it's all about money and being friends with the right people, which simply undermines the censorship system. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of having these rules if some producer at the studio is going to let me say whatever I want because I make a lot of money and he likes me and we get along? You know, it undermines the whole point of censorship. So I really don't like it. I mean, you need to censor stuff for kids, but then again, that's the parent's job to make sure the kid processes whatever information. A lot of censorship is parents trying to get institutions and companies to protect their children from bad information. And newsflash, anybody who has kids, that's your fucking job. That is no one else's job. You cannot sit there and get mad at like, if you're agreeing to something and they're saying, you know, they show a porno to your kid, that's not cool. But it's your job to tell your kids that porno is bad. You know what I mean? It's not the children's TV show. You know what I mean? You can't let the TV show raise your kids. Now, I don't know anything about raising kids. If you ask me, it's a lot of work. I don't really want any. But that's just my message out there. I think that a lot of censorship is used as, they say, oh, it's for the kids, it's to protect the children. They use that as a reason, and then it just breaks everything down. So censorship is bad, right? And what I'm getting at is that, all right, what my trend I put down here is that the YouTube regulation era has begun. As I mentioned earlier, regulation and censorship has always been a thing. The movie industry had it for, when they started, they just had this like seal of approval and had a big barcode or whatever. And like the movie was basically illegal if it didn't have that. And then later on, they have different rating systems, and I can't remember my history, but you got to where we have it now, where it's PG-13, R, and you have to understand that people use this rating system, this censorship system, to control the outcome of movies. Like, I mean, the MPAA is a very controversial organization because nobody can figure out who's actually in it and all that. And like, if you're trying to make a movie and they say, oh, you know what, it's an R, well, the difference between PG-13 and R is a huge number of the audience. Once you get an R, it suddenly becomes a lot harder to make money in the box office because a whole lot less people are going to go see it. And so that's an example of it, and YouTube is going into that now. Obviously, we've had like the copyright strike system in YouTube, but it's an article in NewYorkDailyNews.com. YouTube, Facebook moved toward automatic blocking of extremist videos, and the reason this is bad is because the copyright system in YouTube is notoriously bad. It doesn't work very well. A lot of times people get flagged and it's not really them, and there's all these people, you know, manipulating the system and taking advantage of it. And it's really set up for the powers that be. It's not set up for YouTubers and small people. So just understand that copyright system is used to protect people like NBC who have some special content ID so they can stop other people. It's not really used to protect your YouTube video where you express your original idea and make your original work. So I guess this is, I don't know if this is a trend I can comment on the future, but this is almost like a warning to anyone listening. Like this, it is beginning, you know, YouTube really is turning into television, complete with censorship. I mentioned late night talk show hosts earlier. A lot of late night talk show hosts complain about the censorship, how there's a guy there, you know, shaking his finger at him saying, oh, you can't say that. And I think it's crazy. This is bad for YouTube. This is bad. Like, they use it under the guise of blocking extremist videos, like ISIS videos and all that. But who decides that? Who decides whether or not this is really an ISIS guy or something? And they're saying they want to eradicate violent propaganda, but who says their propaganda is good or bad? Like, obviously, if you're a terrorist and your propaganda, that's really bad, right? But you have to understand, like, this is like Nazi Germany territory. When the government starts saying, oh, those are the bad guys, what if the government isn't being truthful? What if they're wrong? What if they think they're right and they're wrong? I mean, like, there's such an open, it's so easy to manipulate this. It's very bad. I mean, you can say that my video that is talking about how evil it is for people to eat, say, chicken, you could say that that's violent propaganda. I could be sitting there going, screw Kentucky Fried Chicken, everybody go there and riot. You know, that could be considered violent propaganda. And while it's bad to encourage violence, and I think there should be some kind of loose system trying to stop it, it's a slippery slope, you know, because you could sit there and be talking about your religion, perhaps. You know, you could sit there and say, let's use Scientology as an example. It counts as a religion. If I could be a Scientologist, I could get on there and start saying how Scientology is better, and everyone who's not a Scientologist should die, and then they could come after me, you know, or even less, more innocent things. Like, I could be saying, you know, it's a slippery slope, you know what I mean? And I think people need to be aware of this, that YouTube is just like Facebook. It is a company. It is a company. They're searching for profit. This isn't a public service thing. It's not a publicly, sure, they're publicly traded companies, but this is an institution trying to garner profit. This is not a government institution for the people or anything like that. And it's a very slippery slope. So my advice is be on the lookout for a new platform. I think a lot of people are looking for that. As much as I love YouTube, I don't think YouTube is going to go away, but I think there's definitely room for another video platform to come in and have less rules and let people do whatever they want. Because honestly, a lot of these rules and regulations are happening because there's more money. You know, with more money comes more people trying to make money, and more people trying to, you know, manipulate the system, and then you have to police that. And so in terms of, you know, socioeconomic development of this platform, it's really cool that it's turned into TV. But as a viewer and someone trying to, you know, be part of it and make money, it seems bad. So that's all for my rant about YouTube and censorship. Let's go to the next trend. Robots are officially part of our lives now. This isn't a new thing. We've had robots and machines in our lives most of the time. Things like cars, ATM machines. Sure, like, you know, plumbing and stuff. Technically that's technology machines, but the robots I'm talking about are these relatively autonomous robots. The one that I'm talking about the most right now is it's some website called iProgrammer. I've never heard of it. But there's this new robot that Boston Dynamics. If you don't know what Boston Dynamics is, they are, I'm pretty sure they have some deal with DARPA, and they're going to make the next Terminator if they haven't already. But they have all those videos on YouTube of like the walking robots and then the dog robot and stuff. That's Boston Dynamics, and they have the newest one. It's called Spot Mini. The title is called Spot Mini, a domestic pet helper. I don't know about you, but if you ask me, this is the Terminator. And like, I love robot stuff. I love Ghost in the Shell. If you listen to other episodes of the podcast, I love technology and sci-fi and all that jazz. And I've always been very fascinated and excited by robotics, but I am officially worried. I'm officially a little bit concerned. Like, we really are gonna manufacture our demise with these robots. We're gonna, like, it starts with relying on the robots. Now this is a trope that's been in storytelling for generations. The idea of the human make the guard dog, and then the guard dog turns on him because suddenly you need the guard dog, and that's what this is. Like, we use robots so much in our lives that when it goes away, we become at the mercy of it. Like when I don't have my phone, if I lose it or break it, I don't know what day it is, what time it is, nothing. And I don't know what the answer is, because I'm not about to stop using smartphones. I'm not going to stop using the internet. But beware, this is the beginning. These robots are, how long are we going to be able to control it? It's super cool. It's like this dog thing, and it has this arm. It kind of looks like a little giraffe head and like a little clamp to pick up stuff. And in the video, it's it's not cleaning dishes, but it's placing dishes from the sink into the dishwasher. And I mean, it's scary though. You have to understand, humans, we evolved from apes. Like it took us, thousands of years, generations of evolution, one generation after another to get to where we walk and think and make iPads and stuff. But robots, they are developing and evolving so fast. And I don't think they have to be their own species for it to count as evolution. There's still generations occurring. I mean, you can look at old videos from a couple years ago of older generations of robots. I mean, the fact that we are creating them does not change the fact that an evolution is taking place. It is pretty scary. I mean, if like humans, how many generations did it take us to start walking upright? But if you look at robots, there's only been about 3 or 4 generations from when they could really just roll around on the ground to where they're walking around more efficiently than half of the humans on the planet. And I think we really need to be careful. Big names like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking are saying, we got to be careful about AI. If we don't do it right, it's bad. It's really bad. I think that's true. But God, it's so cool though. These robots can just see. I'm an Aquarius, so I am cursed to see both sides of the argument. It's so crazy how they've evolved so fast, but it's also scary because I mean I see this little dog thing running around and I think, shit, you put a rifle on the top of it and a navigation, like a targeting system, and you have a Terminator dog, and how do you turn it off? Where everyone's going to have to start carrying EMP pulses with them or something. And it's very bad. Also, though, it could be good if you believe in the singularity, which is sort of already happening, where it's the idea that humans and robots will merge into one entity, as it were. It's the logical evolution of when you hurt, you can get a robot leg now. Well, who says you can't have an entire robot body in the future? I mean, that's real Blade Runner Ghost in the Shell stuff, but I mean, that's where we're headed towards. I'm in awe, and I'm also in fear of the potential of these robots. They're so cool, but now we're making it where they can get up when they fall over, and they're using. I mean, you could argue that we already have artificial intelligence, because the definition of intelligence, the way we perceive it, is like the way we learn is by trial and error. Like if I stick my hand in an ant pile and the ants bite me, as a kid, that I don't know if I actually stuck my hand in it on purpose, but I remember stepping in one or falling in an ant pile when I was little, and it hurt like hell because ants were all over me, and I learned by experience that ants they bite and it hurts and you want to stay away from them. And that's how we screwed up, and we're teaching robots how to learn like that. They have learning algorithms, and I mean things like Siri and the Google Now, that is that. It's these algorithms that are learning every time you ask it to define what beer is or something when you're drunk with your friends. It's learning from us. And I mean, if you've ever seen iRobot, like that's what happens. These robots, they learn just like we do, but there's an element missing. They don't have that emotional empathy that humans gain. And so then they act like a sociopath would act, where they're smart enough to reason, but they don't have that empathy. And so then they'll make these decisions without considering the ramifications. Like someone on some YouTube channels pointed this out. He said, well, what if we have robots and the robot can say, well, I'm a printer robot and I need paper. Paper is made out of carbon. I don't know if that's the right science, but I'm using it as an example for my argument. Say paper is made out of carbon, and say, well, we need carbon to print more paper. Well, How do we get carbon? And then the logic of the robot goes, oh well, humans are made of carbon. Let's just use all the humans for carbon. And it doesn't have that conscience that says, wait a minute, we don't really want to hurt humans. So then you get into the whole thing of, do we put in like a set of rules? That's very iRobot. There's like a set of rules in it. I don't know what the answer is. I know that it's cool and it's really scary though. And we have to be very careful. And, you know, you never know. We might have to call Keanu Reeves to save the world and get Lawrence Fishburne too. So we'll see what happens. That's all for my trend. Basically, robots are a part of our life. They have the potential to kill us all, and we keep teaching them how to learn, and they're learning more efficiently than we are. Like, humans are great. I think we have potential. They're saying that with science and blah blah, we're going to live to be 150. Maybe not my generation, but like the generation after me will be able to live that long. If I play my cards right, I think I can get to maybe 120 or something. That'd be pretty cool. But I mean, humans are biological creatures. We can only improve so far. And if we don't merge with the robots will for sure surpass us. And I don't know what that's going to mean. So we'll see what happens. That's all for the robot trend. And my final trend today is, well, it's actually related to the robot thing I just got done with. Voice-activated virtual assistants are taking over. The one in the article has to do with Alexa, which is Amazon's version. I know Google has one. They all seem to be the names of women. There's probably some psychological reason they do that. There's this one Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan where the guy puts a woman's voice in his car that talks to him and does all that stuff. And he, excuse me. And there's a joke in there where Q says, oh, Bond, I put a woman's voice. I figured you might listen to her more. So there probably is some kind of psychological reason why they put female names and female voices to this kind of stuff. But it's called the Amazon Echo. I think that's what it's called. Or no, this one's called Amazon Alexa. There's one called Amazon Tap where it's like this little, it's just like it's the size of a computer mouse. And when you're out of detergent, you press a button and it automatically orders it for you. I think that's a little bit too automated. I mean, what if you sit on the button by accident and then you end up with like 30 orders of detergent you can't return? I mean, I think that's a little too automated. I think this automation is what's going to do us in. I think the way to avoid the robots taking over is we don't have it so automated. We need it to be more of automated when we decide it to be. You know what I mean? Like, you can press it to automate it, but it shouldn't be the default mode. But these things are a little bit scary, just like the robot thing. They sit in your house. They pick up a voice from you. You can say, I mean, there was some problems with, I think there were Samsung televisions that would record, they would hear your voice and it's always on, listening for you to say things like, Samsung on. And it's scary because how do you know the company didn't turn it off? You know what I mean? It could still be on, listening to your conversations about your political views. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that governments use to control people, is when you start talking about your views and you're in your home talking about how much you hate the presidential candidate because you think nobody's listening. And maybe the president now doesn't care. Maybe the next few presidents are cool. But what about in 20 years when we have some new guy who might be a nut job and he has all this information about about what we think about certain topics, what our beliefs are, and they can use that against you. And I think I might have talked about this on some Facebook posts, but you should know that the government is recording everything we do. This isn't a tinfoil hat thing. This is a known, proven practice. They're not necessarily bugging our car because they don't have to. We get on Facebook and tell people what we think. We sign up to groups. We post about cats. And the government is monitoring this because they don't even need a court order to monetize it. All you got to do is set up a fake Facebook account and become friends with people. Like, no one needs to keep tabs on us because we're literally keeping tabs on ourselves now. Like, when you check in and say, oh, yo, I'm at this concert now, Facebook and anybody on Facebook can find out what you're doing, where you are, and how you feel about it. It's pretty scary, and I think this ties into it. These virtual assistants, and it's just like I mentioned in the trend earlier. They have algorithms that are listening to what you say and learning about you and learning how to deal with you better every time you tell it something. And that's good and bad. It's good because it makes it easier for you to order pizza at 5 a.m., but it also makes it easier for the robot overlords to destroy you when they turn on us. So it's cool, but I don't really know what to do with it. I'm not going to go move to the woods and be a hippie. A lot of this stuff really helps. I have super ADD, and before all this smartphone business and social media and Google Maps, I was not a very functional person. And so I'm kind of biased towards this. A lot of people say, it makes people less human. They rely on machines and blah, blah, blah. But for someone like me, I had a lot of trouble getting through the day. But now that I can check my email with a little computer in my pocket, and I can set appointments and do research from a little box and a keyboard, my life is infinitely more functional. So, you could say that I'm in more danger of this than a regular person is. But I mean, these assistant things are cool. I don't know if you need it. How hard is it? It's so easy to Google, something on Amazon. I don't know if you really need this extra assistant. I mean, but Americans are lazy. It'll be a big hit in America. So we'll see where this goes. I think in the future it's going to become more prevalent. More people are going to use it. But then again, it could be like Furbies. I remember when Furbies came out. If you don't know what Furbies are, they were like the big toy 1 year or two where everybody had to have one. It was a big deal. They're these little creatures that would react to you, and you could teach them words and stuff. And everyone was like, oh God, the Furbies are going to take over and Y2K. And then nothing happened. They're just these little machines that kind of break down. And, maybe it's not going to happen. I mean, a lot of times when people say the tinfoil hat thing about robots taking over, I say, well, yeah, but I don't know if robots are really going to take over. Because think about your phone. How often does your phone freeze when you're on the internet? Your phone drops a call, or like, you're on Facebook and then the page has to be reloaded because it's frozen. All that kind of stuff is going to happen with robots. And so I'm not really sure how much of a threat technology is to us. We create it, so it's only as much of a threat as we make it. Humans are, we are notoriously flawed. So maybe it will also be flawed like humans. Ooh, that's cool. That should be a show. There probably is shows about that. Battlestar Galactica and stuff. But very interesting. So these virtual assistants are taking over, and more people are going to have them. I think that's all for the trends section. I was kind of worried about going over, but I actually at about the right time. So I'm going to take a small break. You're going to hear a little music. And then when we come back, we're going to have our guest. Today's guest is Keagan Oka, a filmmaker from Dallas, Texas. I think he's from Dallas. I'm pretty sure. Either way, he's from Texas. So stay tuned. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back. I'm your host, Jim Lettuce, and this is the official Temporary Space podcast. We're at the section where we have our guest, and if you can't tell, there's thunder. There's a big epic storm going on outside. But today's guest is Keagan Oka. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm glad to finally have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Cool. So, you are a photographer / filmmaker. Would you say you're a photographer first?
I guess I would, yeah. Yeah, I guess I would start taking pictures first.
Yeah? Well, you got into filmmaking through photography.
Yeah, that's true.
I've noticed a lot of people that do that, their shots always look better than mine.
Maybe I don't know. I can't really explain that.
It's because you like, as photography, it puts more of a focus on like composition and exposure and framing and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas like if like I learned filmmaking like through editing and like filming skits. So my focus is more on like the pacing and not so much on the framing.
Both are important. I guess I would just say, I don't know. I don't know that it's better that I started with one versus the other, but I read that Kubrick took pictures before making movies.
Yeah.
And he was like a photographer with Look magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like his movies were better looking than anyone's, for the time, and even still now.
They hold up. Like A Space Odyssey was on Netflix for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And compositionally speaking, I always felt like that was very important to him. So it's just important, everything's got to look good.
I think you could probably argue that the framing and all that is probably a little more valuable a skill than pacing, because pacing is editing. You can get someone to re-edit, but like the framing, I feel like that would hold more weight in the quote unquote narrative. We're gonna get all film geeky about it.
Well, it's very hard to say because it really depends on the movie,
Yeah, I've just noticed a lot of filmmakers that learn, because there's this whole generation of filmmakers that learned on DSLRs, because that's kind of what you learned on, right?
Yeah.
You see, I learned how to make movies on camcorders.
Yeah.
I think that's why, and I've noticed that just like that generation of filmmakers, all their films look so much. Like, you can have a film that looks great and be a piece of shit, and it almost you can still make money,
That's maybe true.
Yeah.
I would say a good movie that looks like shit would probably do better than a bad movie that looks really good, though.
Wait, a good movie that looks like shit versus a bad movie that looks good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So what was your first camera?
It was... Well, I had like a flip camera way back when.
What's a flip camera?
You never seen those?
Wait, I feel like I should know what that is.
Oh, they were super cool. It was basically just like a little camera with a screen on the back, and it had a little, like, you could push out the USB so you could just directly plug it in, and it just had like 2 or 3 buttons,
Wow.
Very simple.
What year was this?
Mid 2000s,
Okay.
Before people were using DSLRs to make movies. Nobody was really making movies on flip cameras, though. They were just, cheap and fun. But,
cool.
Yeah, I would say, like, my first good camera, like, removable lens camera was a Canon Rebel XS.
Okay, so a Canon.
Yeah. I don't think they make them anymore, but the Rebel series is still around. They just, every couple of years they have to make a newer model.
Like the T3i model. And all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's, a better version of the same thing.
So, what's the camera you have now? Or your latest one that you use?
Right now I have a Canon 60D and a Fujifilm X Pro 1. But I don't know. At the same time, I've also been thinking that I don't really like... I feel like the photography market is basically like a scam, I feel like sometimes. Or just the camera market. I don't know if you ever get that feeling that, there's good products that are constantly being improved, in quotes.
Like they're not really much better.
It's not getting better. They're just kind of trying to sell people more stuff.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
And I feel like a lot of people succumb to that because they feel like they have to have the best image quality per se to take the best pictures or have the best looking video, and that's not as important as things like knowing how to expose it properly or composition and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. Ideally, I won't be buying a new camera for a while. Like,
so you're not interested in getting one? Like, if you had the money, what would you buy right now? Well, I'm curious, what model camera, or is it like you're saying that it's not much better than what you have?
Well, there are cameras that are better than mine. I mean, if I were to try to shoot a movie right now, I would probably want to do it on a camera that's full frame. If it's going to be a digital camera, I want it to have a full frame sensor.
Okay.
But that's only like a slight upgrade from what I have. Like maybe like a used 5D Mark II or something. I probably wouldn't shell out the bread for a completely new thing.
What? So you say full frame? Would you not do some crazy, wide aspect ratio because it's a movie? Because full frame's really tall, correct?
Well,
right?
When I say like that, meaning I would want it to have a full frame like sensor inside of it.
Well, yeah, but the image it gives you is still a larger vertical resolution, right?
I don't know. I think because on my cameras you were always able to choose what aspect ratio you wanted. So.
Well, I guess you could crop it anyways, especially if you're shooting in 4K.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of options for, I know, like 16:9. You can do like square images, like 4:3.
That's cool that you can. I guess you can do aspect ratios in camcorders, but it's usually like. Well, they don't even do it anymore. It used to be if you want to shoot in full screen or not, but nobody really does that.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's not. I don't know. Full screen, you're not getting like the full picture, right?
Well,
I know, like when you're watching a movie.
Well, it's more of an aspect ratio kind of thing, like, because if you get like a Super 6 or not Super 6, just a 16 millimeter, like a Bolex, when you digitally convert it or whatever, technically it's HD resolution, but it's still not that wide screen format. So you're still gonna have black bars on your screen. Like my thought about it is that they're gonna watch it on a horizontal rectangle anyways. I'm fine with shooting regular 1080p, whatever. I'm not a big fan of the super wide. It's like 1 to 1.1. There's like a number everyone uses.
Well, when I think like super wide, it makes me think of the old movies, like with the Panavision super wide lenses,
like
and
in the 60s and stuff. Yeah.
Which all of those were super nice looking, and you get I understand the appeal of doing that because it's like you get to see more and you get more clarity and better picture representation because more pixels on the. But I don't know. A lot of I really am trying to keep it as simple as possible now as far as cameras go. I think that there's a lot of things that can overcomplicate the process that aren't that essential,
Yeah.
So
I feel that way when I pick up a DSLR. Because I'll go to Best Buy sometimes. I almost bought a Nikon 3200. Like I had enough money and I went there and looked at it, but there's just so many bells and whistles and it's like, God, I don't need all that stuff.
Well, it may be like a little naive, but I've always felt that Canon were making DSLRs that were really good for video. I think the 5D Mark II is probably like the first one that real directors were like, hey, we should maybe utilize this. And I don't know, maybe I haven't really looked at Nikon as a viable option for video. And maybe they've stepped it up, but I know when I was in the camera buying market, they didn't really have any options that I was.
I think I was only looking at it because it was cheap and it had. What I look for is like the fastest autofocus because I don't like manual.
Well, there's a lot of I have one of my friends who does like the video game show. He's all about like just sitting the camera there and having an autofocus on his face, and he knows like all about these different cameras that I've never used a camera and autofocus on video mode. I just never trusted it,
Yeah.
But he says that there's a lot of good facial recognition stuff out there that's
nowadays, like the camcorder I have that we shot Impractical Mind with, that's pretty sophisticated auto mode, but we still had problems.
Yeah.
There was definitely one shot where you had to put it on manual.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, I always just feel way better checking, even if it is like really good AF,
Yeah.
It just seems like something that you should do yourself still,
Yeah.
For taking pictures, though, I mean, I live in autofocus unless I have, like, the luxury of a good lens that can zone focus, which...
Oh, so you prefer manual focus for video, but pictures, you're all about the auto.
Well,
at least for focus.
For the most part, yeah. There are some situations where... Just because autofocus on cameras they've been doing it for a lot longer, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of good autofocus systems for still photography out there by now. I don't think... Well, I just haven't used a camera yet that I've been blown away by its video autofocus just yet.
Well, they're just now getting good enough. And my biggest gripe with DSLRs is like, why is it just now getting as good as like a camcorder?
Well, because they weren't necessarily built for video, for their video
they're built
capability.
for photography.
Yeah.
Then you get like things like the C100 that was made for video, quote unquote.
Sure. And I also feel like, you know, I don't think there's anybody out there making like a big budget movie that's using a DSLR and upset that the autofocus isn't good. You know, I think they're probably doing it themselves.
Yeah. Like above a certain level, you're not going to use autofocus anyways.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about Impractical Mind.
Okay.
Now, Impractical Mind, for those of you that don't know, it's a web series that we're still trying to make. There's 2 episodes, and there's 2 episodes out now. The 3rd one is coming. You can check it out on our studio channel. It's the blue one. But Keagan was the cinematographer on the show, and what was let's talk about that. Was that your first time filming? Because you were a filmmaker. Like originally we met working at the movie theater, right?
Yeah.
And
way back when.
by the time we filmed that show, though, I'd already quit.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I remember we had a meeting. I like to say it. Yeah, we did a meeting. We met like at the tables right outside the lobby there.
Yeah.
When I pitched you the show, did that count as a pitch?
I think so.
It was more like, hey, please film this for me.
But yeah. Man, that was a long time ago. How long ago was that?
I know, I'm kind of depressed about it. That was a good 2 or 3 years ago now. It doesn't feel like that long ago.
It doesn't, man.
It feels like 6 months ago to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time passes pretty quick sometimes.
Let's talk about the filming of it. I feel bad now. I forced you to use my camcorder and I did that because initially I thought I was going to be filming enough to where I would have different cameramen on different days.
Yeah.
But it just ended up being you. So
And you sometimes.
Yeah, I did a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. There were some times.
But looking
Remember that
back,
day that I just overslept when we were filming like
oh
at 6 in the
man,
morning or
dude,
something?
that was such a nightmare. Oh man, it was literally like the worst case filmmaking scenario. We had to film. Cinematographer didn't answer the phone. He's not coming. He's asleep. Don't know what happened to him. But we had to film.
To be fair though, what time was it? Like.
Well, you should have told me that you were working a whole shift before that, because we were filming like because we could only film like at the butt crack of dawn, and we had to get the sunrise in the shot.
Yeah.
And so we met up at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And
I think I tried to stay up all night and
you said you lied down for a nap and then
I was gonna
it got done. It got filmed somehow.
And it looked good.
It did look good. It turned out really well actually. Yeah. And the actors were so good. Nobody complained.
Yeah.
And Milo.
Yeah.
He's the guy who plays the villain in the episode 2. That's what we're talking about.
That Quincy
Nastily. Yeah. He's based on Dick Dastardly, a character from the old. I don't even know what show that was from. I guess it was Wacky Racers, but that was also based on other shows. It was like this guy.
Sure.
It's like those old melodramas where it's black and white and he's tying the girl to the rail. Like that's basically what our villain is in the second one.
Yeah.
But I mean I had fun. Did you like it? Did you do you think it would have been better with your camera?
Not necessarily.
I think the production value would have been a little higher.
It maybe would have looked a little bit better, but DSLRs have their limitations too, you know.
Yeah, it would have been, the lower light would have been harder.
Well,
but it's such a sharp picture, like those.
Nah, I mean they handle a light pretty well depending on the lenses you have, but like I don't really have like a rig for moving it around so much, and I would say that the camcorder probably looks better hand holding and kind of tracking people.
Yeah, because you'd be manual all the way with yours.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll just have to get your camera and make some,
other thing.
Super slow landscape still shot kind of movie.
Yeah. It'll be cool. But yeah, I have really fond memories of doing all of that. It was a really good time, and all the people I met were really awesome. Like, I remember that night, I don't know which episode it is, but no, it's already out, right? In the backyard, right?
The backyard?
Yeah, like the Santa.
No, that's the third one.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, cool.
So the third one.
That was a super fun episode to shoot, though.
Yes, that one's gonna be the best one.
Okay.
They definitely progressed.
The party episode
quality.
was like very fun to shoot.
It was
it was tough, but it was fun.
I had zero fun while we were doing it.
Yeah.
Because I made the mistake. All right, so for filmmakers out there, do not serve people real alcohol during a party scene, because by the time you're like 2 hours into it, people are at a party.
Yeah. And
I had to like scream my lungs out and get everyone to shut up between takes. But other than that, it worked out so well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I don't know, I feel like that's really the first sort of legit thing I've ever done, so.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean,
well, I'm honored you think it's legit.
I do appreciate you calling me a filmmaker and all, but, I'm still just trying to make a movie, basically.
Well, you've made a movie. Didn't you direct the 24-hour film race one time?
Yeah. That
there
one
you
time.
go. And I don't know.
One of those exists. One of them.
Weren't you the director of the other one, the Darby and Gill?
I don't know. There was just like everyone kind of directed it,
Yeah.
For those, we never really sat down and said, okay, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, and kind of just.
You think it would have been better that way, or is it the way we did it better?
I honestly don't know. That's just a tough thing to do. I don't really even. I kind of want to do it again, but at the same time, I kind of don't.
I feel the same way.
It's very, very tough to keep everyone energetic and just willing to work at it the whole time. I don't know. And it always, no matter what you do, I feel like it's going to feel like it's thrown together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind maybe doing 24 hours and I have to have the basic premise for a movie. That might be a healthy exercise, but to make a 5-minute short film in 24 hours is a lot harder than it sounds, especially when you have weird specific things that you have to put in the movie.
Yeah, they had the weirdest requirements. For the one we did was you have to have a phone book. I mean, it was difficult to get a phone book. Yeah,
you did have to have a phone book, and you had to use a particular line of dialogue.
Yeah.
And you had to be, one location had to be in the shot. And I understand all of these requirements to make sure that you're doing it on the day.
Yeah.
And not something that you created last week and entering. But I don't know. That's not really the recipe for a really good short.
Yeah.
Telling someone you have to have this in the movie.
Yeah.
It's almost no way to make it where it's not clunky. It's hard to have organic dialogue when you're thinking I have to remember to ease towards this line that will make it qualify for this film race. So maybe someday I'll do it again. And I remember the last year that I was working at Angelica and they did it, and the guy who basically just took charge of it, I wasn't super cool with, so I was just out.
I know that feeling.
And everyone that actually participated was he was kind of a jerk, and he had he basically didn't even let anyone from work in the movie.
That's not cool. It's the
and
Angelica team. We won't say names.
Yeah, we won't say
this person.
You know him.
I feel you though. I wanna do that, But I also think like, we could just make a short without having to do it in 24 hours.
And I feel like also maybe we had too many people on the times that we did do it, and because I remember us like delegating the writing of it to people that like weren't able to be there the whole time, and yeah, I don't know. It's a weird experience. It's kind of fun, but mostly stressful. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Maybe. But like I said, we could easily...
Maybe a 48-hour.
Why don't we just make a short and not have a weird time limit?
Yeah.
We could just make it good.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite movie? I feel like we've talked about this, but I don't know what your answer is.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like for a long time, my favorite movie was Clockwork Orange. And it's still, like, very high up there. Because when I saw that movie, I just feel like it had a really profound effect on me. The first time I saw it, I don't think I understood it, but I was so like taken back just by what I had seen that I was like, I have to see this movie again and figure out what it's about. And then it's like the more I watched it, basically the more I loved it. And in some ways, I think that movie kind of inspired me to make movies, or it just made me realize the potential of what you can say with a movie, basically. You know? But I don't know. I see movies all the time that kind of make me wonder what my favorite movie actually is. You know, saw this movie kind of recently called Over the Edge. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of an older movie.
Yeah.
It's like these kids taking over a town, like this really oppressive town that's like anti-vandalism, and all the kids like go into this school. Basically, I don't want to ruin it, but they take over the town, you know. And it's not cheesy. It's not like, you know, our parents suck, we're gonna. But it's like
serious.
Yeah, they play it serious, and I think it's 80s. Matt Dillon's in it.
Okay. Yeah,
some other people, but I really liked it. I saw this one really good movie like a couple weeks ago called Secrets and Lies. Super good
like
British movie.
Yeah.
And it's all just like people talking, which I always like that kind of movie. And that was probably like the best I had seen it done. Almost like stage play-esque, but
yeah,
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for someone who can make a really, really good movie where there's not so much happening.
Yeah, where they're just sitting there and talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to write compelling dialogue, and especially when it's all not even in response to something, you know. So I really like that. I don't know. What's your favorite movie?
I don't know. It always changes.
Yeah, it changes
but
much.
Lately, it's changed to a new one. It's this movie called Woo-Chi. Woochi. It's a Korean movie. I think in other countries it's called like Woo-Chi the Demon Slayer.
Okay.
But it's called Woo-Chi on Netflix.
Is it a kung fu movie?
It's not really. It's kind of like Princess Bride. Okay. It's like this adventure fantasy kind of movie. And it's this guy named Woo-Chi, and he's like a Tao master, basically like a mage kind of thing. And he's training, and he's real stubborn. And I don't want to give it away, but like the movie starts like back in the day. Wow, glad I'm using the recorder. And like basically like it starts back in the day, and but then they go in present day, and there's like monsters and he has like, he's kind of like a mage. Like he himself doesn't really have the power, but he can do tricks. And it's like goofy, but there's martial arts in it, and like, I don't know, man. Those Korean movies, the Korean movies and Bollywood, like they're tearing it up.
Really?
I don't like. You've heard of Bollywood and stuff. But
yeah,
like,
I haven't seen it.
I've recently watched it. Like Bollywood first. Like they don't give a shit. It's awesome. Like they'll have a movie, big budget, big blockbuster movie, and it'll turn into a music video.
Sure.
And it's not like a montage music video scene, like, oh, they're dating.
Yeah.
It's like straight up.
Yeah.
The cast is like singing to the camera, dancing.
Yeah.
Man, it's awesome. I like it. Cause
I don't know if I would want all my movies to be like that though.
Yeah, I mean,
and I feel like it's hard. I don't know. I need to watch some Bollywood movies so I can have some perspective, but no, there's no musical that's like one of my favorite movies, you know.
I know,
and not to
hate
insult,
musicals.
not to insult music. I like some of them. Some of them are really good, but it seems like it would be very hard to make a good movie that takes itself seriously. Maybe.
Well, they don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
They do a little bit, but like the one I saw that really turned me was okay. There's a Tom Cruise movie with Cameron Diaz called Night and Day.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
It's actually
kind of recent, right?
Yeah, like the last few years, 4 or 5 years. It's actually really fucking good.
Is it N-I-G-H-T?
Yeah, it's like K-N-I-G-H-T.
Okay,
it's based on a book.
That's what I was thinking.
Like for reference, this was like the first movie that kicked off the whole Tom Cruise doing his own stunts. Like he's always done his own stunts, like back in Mission Impossible 2, but this was the movie when he like that like trend of him doing all these crazy stunts, doing all himself, and he like turned 50 when they made this too.
Wow. And
like one of the most famous ones from the movie is he like says a line to Cameron Diaz and then he jumps off a bridge, and it's actually really funny and good, and the action is good. But the Bollywood movie I saw was the Bollywood version of that movie. Okay. And it's like the star is this guy is a big star, and you can tell who he is. He's basically like the Tom Cruise of Bollywood, but he has like two. It's weird. It's like his pinky is like two pinkies together. It's like some weird deformity.
Like he has 6 fingers.
Yeah, and at first you're like, oh, what the fuck? But then after a while, it's like his thing. He doesn't show it in the movie or anything, but like.
Oh, like he doesn't show it any extra.
He does, yeah. It's not a plot point, but he doesn't hide it.
Yeah. And
like I read up interviews, and he's like, I used to hate it, but now it's like my trademark.
Weird.
But like that movie did all this stuff, all the action that you'd expect in a big movie, but then it would cut to like
singing and dancing.
Yeah, like straight up
in the streets.
MTV music video.
Yeah, we'll watch a Bollywood movie, see what's up.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know what that one's called though.
Dang. That would have been a good one to start with, but
yeah,
we'll find a good one. I don't even know like where to go to see them, but someone was telling me that there's like a theater in Irving that shows Bollywood movies. Yeah, it's a pretty big Indian population over there, so
cool.
Would make sense, yeah.
I just watched it on Netflix. Just watch it online somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something we can talk about. The whole point of this podcast is industry trends in technology and entertainment. So, as a filmmaker, photographer, person, what do you think about all these streaming services? Like, how many do you have? Netflix or any streaming services?
I had Netflix and then I canceled it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I canceled it twice for the same reason, and it was just because I don't like having any service that takes money directly from my account without notifying me first.
Oh yeah.
Just because that's very inconvenient at times when there's no money in my account. It basically makes me overdraft, and instead of Netflix costing $8 or $10, it's like $38. You know, and not really worth it.
Shit. They should really let you pay. Like 99% of all services online that have a monthly, they have a way where you can pay by the year, and you just pay a lump sum. Sure. And it's slightly cheaper.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that's not an option for Netflix.
Because I'm on your side of the argument. I don't like that either. I prefer it's easier for me to get $200 once a year than it is for me to get $15 every month.
Yeah. I don't know if that's easier for me or not, but still, I don't know. I would just prefer that they ask every time before doing it, but
then their service wouldn't work though.
Yeah, I mean, people wouldn't. I don't know. People would have to think about it more, you know.
Yeah, they might screw it up. They're talking about putting ads.
Really?
If they did ads, myself included, I'm just gonna cancel it.
Yeah.
That's not worth it.
That would suck.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to pay for something with ads, you know.
The YouTube Red, is that?
Yeah, I think that's.
I don't think anybody does it though.
My brother was telling me that they were offering like a 3-month trial for 99 cents or something.
Really?
Yeah, but
you can just get ad block for free.
Well, but I don't think that blocks YouTube ads.
Yeah, it does.
Really?
Yeah. I use it all the time. That's right, folks. I'm a YouTube creator. I use AdBlock. Deal with it. It's a controversial thing. A lot of people like get upset at YouTubers that use AdBlock because that's how they make a lot of money.
Well, they don't just make money off of me watching the video itself. It's only through the advertisements.
Well, like, they only make money when someone clicks on an ad or if they're paying for YouTube Red. And the scale is so low. This is another controversy in YouTube, is that they're not getting paid enough. YouTube takes too big of a cut, because like you have to get like 10,000 views a day for you to get, you know, maybe that's probably only going to be like $500-600 a month, and that's if you're like consistent with it.
Well, I don't know. I just really hope that there will be at some point a video streaming service that can monetize. That can be monetized without ads. I'm very anti-ads.
Well, they have those actually. They didn't market themselves well. There's one called Vessel, like VESSEL, and it's basically YouTube, but you pay a monthly fee, and it's just like what you're saying. But they kind of they didn't sell themselves as a streaming platform that makes money without ads. They promoted themselves as like, this is the premium YouTube, you know?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But I've thought about joining that stuff.
But the thing is, YouTube was really smart because it's so ingrained now. You know, there's so many videos on YouTube, and that's just basically where people go to see videos. Yeah. And they waited until they became this huge force for videos before basically becoming incredibly obnoxious with the ads. It's to the point now where you can't listen to an album on YouTube without hearing an ad in the middle of it. I think that's terrible.
But then again...
And then the ads aren't even relatable. Like, you would think that there would be some sort of algorithm that can say, you're watching this kind of video, maybe you'd be more likely to want to see this ad than this one. And I don't think there's any such thing. So
I think they have it, but it's just not good enough yet.
Well,
it's just like the copyright system. It works, but it not really well.
I don't know though. It's an interesting time to want to, you know, make money in that format. I like the idea of it, and I think it's kind of a good. I think it's a pretty good thing, but I'm a little bit removed from it. I don't really think that's what I want to do right now, you know?
Like YouTube stuff, or like...
I mean, I'll put videos on YouTube if I make them, but I wouldn't...
You wouldn't try to make money on it?
Yeah.
You're waiting for another platform, is what you're saying.
Maybe not even that. It's I don't want to have to make videos all the time, you know?
Yeah,
and
that's
it seems like
thing.
that's the thing. I want to just make movies, you know? I want to make good movies. Like, I don't want to be someone who's constantly making videos just to... And it also seems so volatile. I mean...
Oh, it is.
Subscribers are just people out there who like something enough to click a button, but it's like, if the money is like based off of views, then I don't know. It just seems like eventually you might have to start pandering to people to like...
No, that's happening right now. Like, you know about YouTube pranksters?
No.
Oh, well, prank videos is a thing, right?
Yeah.
But on YouTube in the last couple of years, prank videos is like a genre.
Sure.
And the whole prank video community is falling apart because a lot of them, like, because it gets to the point where the pranks had to become so crazy just to keep the views up.
Oh, sure.
And like one guy, a famous one, made it look like he murdered someone in front of his friend.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that. And now like one of the biggest ones, he's Vitaly Z. Yeah. You've heard of him, the Russian guy?
Do you even lift?
Yeah. He streaked at the NBA and got arrested, and he keeps doing bigger and bigger stuff just to get the views. And then things like AdBlock are screwing all that up, because when AdBlock became a thing, like 6 months, a year ago, like everyone experienced a huge drop in their ad sales, and so now a lot of people have kind of jumped ship, and they use crowdfunding like Patreon. Have you heard of Patreon? It's like Kickstarter, but it's ongoing. It never stops.
Oh, interesting.
And so a lot of YouTubers now, wow, they'll like bake their ads in the video. Like it used to be a thing that would pop up.
Sure.
Now like in the video itself, they're like, yo, check out Chick-fil-A, blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't know. Lately, and I recommend it to anyone out there with some time. I watched this documentary called Century of the Self. And it talks about this guy named Edward Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, who lived in America, and he took Freud's theories of, the collective unconscious and people being motivated by basically primal urges, the id and the ego, all of these ideas about a self-conscious, and also psychoanalysis, and he brought it to the world of advertising. Like he was the first PR guy, and he's largely responsible with the way that now, and in the past also, things are sold to people by how they make you feel rather than the product itself.
Yeah.
So like basically before him, if you wanted to sell someone a microphone, you would say, this microphone sounds better than the rest of the microphones, it's better build quality, it's been used on this record, and whereas like after him it would be like, just so long as you can attach the idea of someone feeling good about, or if you can attach a good music, like the idea of just something that someone already loves with the product, and that I feel like that's everything in ads now, and how you basically can watch a commercial and for most of it not even know what it's selling until the end, where they tell you what it is. You just see happy people and they use cliche phrases like, this is America, and in America we have values, and like
that kind of like corporate motivational stuff.
There's like some ambient like inspirational music as a backdrop. I don't know, and since watching this documentary I've been very, very critical of ads, and it's hard to, I don't know, I hate the idea that, I feel like at some point if you're aware of it, then you're less susceptible to it. But if something's trying to attack your subconscious, then even you being aware of it might not be enough to have it not affect you somehow. And not necessarily like every commercial I see I'm going to go buy something, but
it kind of adds up though.
Yeah, it has some effect, and I don't know that people are aware of what that is yet. And when you watch this documentary, like, one of the things that he was first responsible for was like cigarettes. Cigarette companies went to him because women just weren't smoking cigarettes. And there was like a parade in New York or something, and he had all these women smoke cigarettes all at once and fed the press this tagline that they're lighting up symbols of freedom.
Wow. And
he attached patriotism basically to smoking, so that women would feel like they're doing something for their rights, basically.
That's so Orwellian.
Yeah, it's crazy, but, and I watched that, and then I watched like Manufacturing Consent, like Noam Chomsky sort of stuff in it. You sort of start to get the sense that everything's kind of tied together, and it's like all basically to try to manipulate people or affect people on some, like, the whole consumer culture, is a manufactured thing, and I just feel like ads on YouTube, it doesn't help.
From a business standpoint, like, as someone trying to make media and make money to make more of it, I guess.
Sure.
YouTube had to put ads or something because they actually didn't make any profit until they started doing that. So, like, because YouTube started like 2006, and then 2012 was when you could make money on it. So that's like for 6 years they lost money.
Maybe.
So it's like it's a documented fact. Like,
definitely.
The company was not profitable until they implemented ads, and so they really were just riding on the Google infrastructure and like their promotion of the brand. And just the fact YouTube, they did it right. Like, everyone uses it now.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any profit to do stuff with it until, of course, they're Google. They have all the money in the world. But it's interesting. But I think maybe there's some truth to what you're saying. They could probably take a smaller cut because YouTube takes the biggest cut. Like it's like Vimeo. I don't know if anybody cares about Vimeo anymore. They take a small cut.
Yeah.
But YouTube takes like the biggest one.
Interesting.
But then again,
they are the video hosting site. That's where people
are
going to watch your stuff.
Like if I'm trying to sell a movie, they're going to take a big cut, but it's going to cost me $0 to put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to play it in a theater, it's going to cost you a good $200-$300 to rent it for one night.
Depending on what theater it is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. It's very... I haven't even given that much thought to that idea of, like, when I finally do make something, how will I monetize it? But on some level, it's like, I don't even want to think about that right now, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe a little foolish, but I think if you just can devote all your time and effort to actually making the best thing you can, whenever that happens, I think if it's good enough, it'll find its audience and people will appreciate it, and it might not be like an immediate thing, but whatever needs to happen for it to continue or grow into something else will happen, so long as... Yeah. And that maybe that's just optimism and having not really put anything out that has had to stand up to that test yet, but we'll see.
It happens all the time, though. There's this one guy, the guy who wrote The Martian.
Yeah.
The Matt Damon movie.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote it as like a serial short story every few weeks when he could get around to it for like... This happened over a span of a year or two before it ever became a book deal.
Wow.
And it makes me wonder, like, how, you know... I don't know, some people, man, I don't know, some people, they just roll out of bed and they make these amazing little Instagram videos and Snapchat and vlogs.
Yeah.
And I feel like I slaved away on the Impractical Mind show, and then, like, not as many views as I would like, you know? And it's like, well, shoot, am I promoting it bad? Or some people just... Because I don't know, man. I think you're right. If you just make it, it'll work. But I don't know. I think that works, but after a while...
It's hard to remain...
Well, it's just like filmmaking specifically, just because it costs money, you know?
Yeah, it does.
Unless you're doing a vlog and it's like just you.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're almost at our time. We actually went a little bit over.
Oh, yeah?
Well, this is cool. This went by real fast.
Yeah, it super did.
So, are there any future projects, future photography, filmmaking things you're trying to do that you feel like mentioning, or
I'm still just
anything you'd like to do?
Yeah, I don't know. Right now I'm actually spending more time trying to record music, but I'm still taking pictures. And I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about... I think a good thing to do would just be to travel. So I'm trying to do that in the future. Excuse me. But yeah, nothing like super big and super close to being finished that I feel comfortable mentioning right now.
Okay.
Just
So where can people find you if they want to hit you up, look at some of your work? Do you have an Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, I have an Instagram. I don't really post any of my photos there. Also have Facebook and don't post so much there. I just kind of felt like it wasn't the best venue for... Because people see photos on... I don't know.
Wait, so I want to get this straight. You think Instagram is bad for photos or Facebook or both?
I would say neither of them are the best way to look at photos.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Instagram is probably worse than Facebook. Just because it's on a phone and it's cropped to a square, and I honestly dislike a good majority of the Instagram photos I see when I'm scrolling through my feed. Just because they all look the same and they all have...
It's always like someone's cat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like cats, but I don't know. You can see an Instagram photo and basically tell that it's an Instagram photo in a lot of cases, and I guess that's what I'm against.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of like cinematography type YouTube channels I watch, they joke about it that once you put it, you don't really... Professionals aren't going to put it on Instagram. they're gonna have like their own website or something.
Well, by the same token, it's like that is where most people look at photos. So there are a lot of professional photographers who use it, and I actually do. I won't say that there aren't good photos on Instagram. That would be a lie, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's the best way to look at photos.
Yeah.
Prints, obviously, time tested.
Mm-hmm.
They look good. It's like a process, and it lasts. But I'm pretty old school, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I try to be. I think the best way to get good at something is like the time tested way, as opposed to, not saying that you can't get good at something doing it the new way, but it's just like if all of these legendary people basically got good at what they're doing the same way,
mm-hmm.
then it's like proven to work, is how I see it, you know.
Yeah.
If all the best photographers in the world made their living by selling prints, then even if YouTube does seem to be like the future of it, I would rather try to do it that way, even if it's just because I'll get better results for myself, you know.
Okay.
And that, not necessarily proven, but I think that might be the case.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out to the show. Glad we could have you. Hopefully we'll get you back on another episode.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Once again, this is Keagan Oka, a filmmaker, photographer in Dallas, who's also the cinematographer of Impractical Mind. Please check it out. First 2 episodes on the Studios channel. Third one coming as soon as we can.
Yeah, got a little hint in there.
Yeah, there's a little Easter egg for you if you actually were listening.
Yeah.
That's about it. Thanks for tuning in to the Temporary Space Network. I'll close out the show. We'll have a little break first, but I think we're done. Okay, in summary, Samsung has the right idea about VR. Everyone and their brother has a live stream function now. More video game movies are to come. YouTube regulation era has begun. Robots are officially part of our lives now, and voice-acted virtual assistants are taking over. Those last 2 are kind of connected. And thanks again to our guest, Keagan Oka. The links to my sources are in the description. Thank you for tuning in to Temporary Space Network. Subscribe if you like information. You can also find out more information on our website at TemporarySpace.net. That's all, folks.